Welcome everyone to the latest weather analysis video. In this forecast, we're going to be talking about some dominant weather patterns over the next couple of weeks across Europe, including temperature and precipitation trends. We will then look at a significant change in the weather pattern across the continental US and even Alaska. If you would like to get straight into the information for the United States, make sure you click the timestamp in the description. Without further delay, let's begin this video. We aren't going to focus too much on specific storms because I'm going to be showing you some trends. So firstly, you're going to notice a big storm system heading towards Ireland and the UK, and this is spreading some widespread gusty winds and rain into Europe. But here's another thing to take note of. We have constant snowfall showing up in Scandinavia, more specifically over Sweden, and notice how long it persists. Just to put this into perspective, this is how much snow we may have accumulated over the next couple of weeks. All of this constant moisture moving in with these storms coming into this cold air mass could basically create a weeks-long snowstorm for parts of central Sweden into Norway, with some of these areas receiving over 100 centimeters of snow. Even by the middle of the month, some areas are still seeing snowfall. And of course, we continue to see a very active warm and westerly pattern, with storms continuously streaming off the Atlantic. Then we see a bit of a storm system down around Italy and the Balkans after November 15th, which is a continuation of one of the storms coming in off the Atlantic. If this comes to fruition, I would be watching out for some heavy rainfall and possibly flooding. This is the precipitation anomaly for the month of November as a whole, and I think this model is doing quite well. The areas shaded in yellow will see a generally dry pattern throughout the month of November, which is already occurring. A lot of Europe looks to receive some very stormy weather in the coming weeks, which is why you see widespread green. The strongest signal for wetter than normal conditions is across France. We also see some signals for precipitation making it as far as Turkey and Cyprus, especially with some of these systems moving through the Balkans initially. This is the possible precipitation totals through November 19th according to the European model. The heaviest totals are expected from Western Europe down into Southern Europe, with places like southern Spain and Portugal as well as northern Scandinavia seeing little to no precipitation. And now for the temperature trends. The temperature forecast according to this model is also looking pretty realistic. We see much warmer than normal anomalies showing up, especially the further east you go, which is accurate. This doesn't mean we won't see any colder weather later on, because that's actually what I'm expecting as we go forward. Further west we see more of a neutral signal, which is reasonable since we have so many storms expected to continue moving through, which is going to help keep those temperatures a bit lower. Places like Portugal and Spain may trend a bit warmer since the precipitation is expected to slow down. And then looking towards Scandinavia, we see those widespread colder anomalies, which is already occurring. Taking a look here at the temperature map, we see those widespread freezing temperatures across Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and this is contributing to that constant snowfall, especially for central Sweden. For southern and central Iberia, you can expect an increasingly warm and dry pattern as we go forward, mainly due to a high pressure area building up. I think that France, Germany, Ireland, the UK, and many other areas within the green shade can expect a lot of rain and windy weather. Blue shade over Scandinavia can expect a lot of snowfall. Northern Scandinavia can expect very cold temperatures with generally dry weather. The small portion of Norway in the dark purple can expect dry and cold weather at first before turning snowier. Eastern Europe can expect a trend towards colder weather, and in this greenish blue shade over the Balkans, you can expect wet weather at times with colder air coming in later. The red shade encompassing Italy and some surrounding countries is where I think we should be watching out for some renewed threats of flooding. Italy has already received some devastating flooding earlier this month, and we may have some more strong systems on their way, which could exacerbate the flood concerns. And lastly, the yellow shade for Cyprus, Israel, and Turkey can expect increasingly stormy conditions, with some potent storm systems possibly slamming that region later this month. So right now we have this ice storm going on mainly for the higher elevations in New England, and that may cause some disruption for the Thursday morning commute. But that's not the main story. As we push this forward, you may be wondering, what is the main story? There's really not much going on. Well, as you can see here, this is what we're watching. Notice the storm coming into California around the November 15th time frame. We talked about this in my previous forecast, and now it's likely to become a reality. The Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook is looking more and more like a typical El Niño pattern. Look at all that drier than normal weather being forecasted across the northern tier of the US, while the western and southern United States is looking a lot wetter. If we zoom in closer to the southwest, you can see that places from Oregon down towards Utah and Arizona may be in for more precipitation than normal, with California seeing very high probabilities for above average precipitation. Over the next several days, a generally quiet pattern is expected, but watch what happens as we get towards the 13th and the 14th. A cut-off low type of a system breaks off the main jet stream and then stalls out off the west coast. It will seemingly just spin around doing nothing between November 14th and the 15th. Eventually, it's going to start funneling moisture into northern California around this time, and by the 16th, it will start bringing rain and mountain snow for the rest of the state. This storm will be a slow mover, so widespread rainy weather may be in the forecast for a few days. The storm will eventually dissipate, but models are hinting towards more storms after November 20th, which we will talk more about in future videos if necessary. But another place expecting lots of rain and snow over the next several days is Alaska. You don't typically see Alaska with such an extreme precipitation outlook like you see here. Much of Alaska is overtaken with high probabilities of wetter than average weather, especially for the west central portion of the state. Anywhere from about Nome, Alaska on the west coast towards Fairbanks can expect some very active weather ahead. And just to get a visual aid of how much precipitation we're expecting, here's a quick walkthrough on what the GFS model is showing. You can see right off the bat a big snowstorm moving in between November 12th and the 13th, and then here comes another one between November 14th and the 15th. And then beyond that, we may continue to see major storms just continuing to move in. The possible snowfall accumulations through November 25th also look pretty significant. Much of western Alaska may be looking at 1, 2, or even 3 feet of snowfall, with perhaps even more in the mountainous terrain. And with that in mind, thank you for watching today's European and US weather forecast. Make sure you subscribe for more important weather information just like this for Europe and the US.